The inequities in this city, the racial inequities, are stark. We are talking about findings that have shown that the wealth of a median white household in the city is more than $200,000, while that of a black household is less than $20,000. We've now opened a public comment period for the next 30 days to ensure that we have a city where we are reckoning with the long history of racism here and starting to act upon a framework that puts equity right at the center of it.
We already see an exodus of working and middle-class New Yorkers. So I don't have a hesitation in asking those who make the most amount of money in the city or the most profits in the city to pay a little bit more so that everyone can actually stay in this city.
We are seeing a mass exodus of working and middle-class New Yorkers. To make matters worse, New York City is also seeing a mass exodus of major corporations, or as Zohran Mamdani prefers to call them, evil colonizers. New York City is seeing a mass exodus of jobs along with a mass exodus of the middle class. I wonder why. I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that Zorro is taxing them out of the city. I wonder if it has anything to do with what I believe is the real plan for Zohran Mamdani, which is turning New York City into a utopian paradise for radical Islamists. Zohran Mamdani is no dummy. This is a smart dude. He knows exactly what he is doing. Although he pretends to be oppressed, Zohran Mamdani was raised in a life of privilege. His mother is an Oscar-nominated director. His father is a prominent professor at Woke U. Zohran Mamdani knows that rich people and the upper middle class. Zorro knows that people with options will never pay this equity tax that he is proposing. Instead of paying these equity taxes, they will simply leave New York City. You know, yesterday I had a meeting with my accountant to finalize my 2025 taxes. Since my wife works for a company, her taxes are withheld throughout the year. But me, I get all of my money up front and I send them a lump sum payment once or twice a year. If I told you guys how much I pay in taxes, you would be pissed off for me. But my main problem with it isn't necessarily the amount. I don't mind paying my fair share. It's what my money is being used for. I don't mind helping out the single mother who is working 2 jobs to support her child. I don't mind helping her out with the groceries. I do mind my tax money being used to help out the professional mother who has so many kids that the family could field a football team. She keeps having children, so the mailbox money doesn't expire. And it damn sure pisses me off to have my hard-earned money being used to financially support people who aren't working. Unfortunately, you can't get away from federal taxes, but you can get away from state and local taxes. People with options, they are not going to pay some doofus equity tax, so Zohran Mamdani can elevate those who are not working to the same financial level of those who are working. I could live in New York City if I wanted to, but why in the hell would I want to? Why would I willingly pay significantly more in taxes? One of the reasons that we chose Nashville last summer as a temporary home, Tennessee has no state income tax. So the month or so that I was working there, I didn't have to pay taxes. Whether it's the doofus equity tax, the Islamic call to prayer every morning at 5 a.m., Islamists taking over Times Square and turning it into a public mosque, Zohran Mamdani has already given people plenty of reasons to leave New York City. And now he is giving all patriotic Americans a reason to leave the city. According to Zorro, It is acceptable to turn Times Square into an Islamic paradise. It's acceptable to celebrate Ramadan in the middle of the city that's been most impacted by radical Islamists. But for America's 250th birthday, for patriotic Americans to organize a celebration of America on July 4th in Times Square, according to Zohran Mamdani, not only is that no bueno, it's outright banned. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Let's go and get to the sponsor for today's video, my good friends at American Attitude. Here in a couple of months, America will be celebrating its 250th birthday. 250 years of freedom. 250 years of being what I believe is the greatest country on earth. Due to a certain political party that is anti-American, I'm sure July 4th this year will be intentionally divisive. But you can show your love and support for our country with patriotic gear from American Attitude. American Attitude is more than a clothing brand. It is a movement for people who love faith, freedom, and a good punchline. They've got plenty of hats and shirts that celebrate 250 years of American freedom. But my personal favorite is the infidel t-shirts and hoodies, where you're basically displaying your pride at being labeled as an infidel. They've also got patriotic hoodies and tumblers to keep the beverage of your choice iced during the summer. American Attitude strives to bring patriotic Americans together through humor and unapologetic American grit. So click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. Use my promo code BTL10, BTL10. Receive 10% off your first purchase with American Attitude. Headline at the New York Post. Times Square ball drop to celebrate America's 250th still going forward, but there will be no public event. Let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. There is going to be a celebration in Times Square for July 4th. The ball is going to drop. 2,000 pounds of red, white, and blue confetti will fall into the streets. Unlike the snow and garbage piling the streets of New York City, I'm sure the confetti will be cleaned up immediately since, you know, we don't want to offend New Yorkers who hate America. There's going to be a party for America in Times Square, but Americans aren't invited to the party. The question is why? Unsurprisingly, Zohran Mamdani is the party pooper. With the World Cup being held in New York City this summer, Zorro has signed an emergency order restricting public events in New York City parks. But Uncle KC, can't he make an exception? Now, in Zohran Mamdani's defense, I'm sure he tried. With Zorro being dedicated to inclusion, I'm sure he did everything he could to ensure that Americans could celebrate 250 years of freedom that is rapidly disappearing in New York City. But the problem is, there aren't enough police officers to secure the celebration. The NYPD is severely understaffed. They are 6,000 officers short. To make matters worse, hundreds of police officers are quitting every month, and the NYPD is expecting to see a mass exodus of cops quitting this summer. Cops, though, they are not the only ones leaving New York City. Thanks to the brilliant policies from Zohran Mamdani, people in New York looking for gainful employment, they are having an increasingly difficult time finding high-paying jobs because most of the major corporations offering those jobs, they're getting the hell out of there. According to Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Major corporations, they are either downsizing or they are leaving New York City altogether. Before Zohran Mamdani's idea of an equity tax, New York already had the highest individual income and state taxes and the highest city and state corporate taxes. Zohran Mamdani, he is trying to approach taxing businesses from an emotional perspective. He's trying to tax businesses based on equity or fairness, loyalty to New York City. Unsurprisingly, Zohran Mamdani has no idea how businesses work, mainly because I don't think he's ever had a job. Mamdani wants to raise corporate taxes from 7.25% to 11.5%. He also wants to raise individual taxes on millionaires by 2%. JP Morgan Chase has already eliminated 6,000 jobs in New York City, and they moved those jobs down to Texas. Other major corporations, they are doing the same thing. Believe it or not, this is not the first time that New York City has dealt with a mass exodus. Back in the 1970s, the city was on the verge of bankruptcy. There was rampant crime. I believe at the time, New York City was essentially controlled by the unions who were controlled by the mafia. I'm sure you'll be surprised to know that during the city's struggles in the 70s and the 80s, New York City was being run by doofus Democrats. The story is always the same. Democrats take something nice and they destroy it. In the 90s and 2000s, New York City had back-to-back Republican mayors, and the city was thriving. Rudy Giuliani was elected after he completely dismantled the mafia and eliminated crime. Mike Bloomberg took over and ran New York City until 2012 or 2013. Then, of course, doofus Democrats, they take back over, and they take what took decades to build, and they instantly destroyed it. Bill de Blasio was an unmitigated disaster, and now we've got Zohran Mamdani. There's a difference, though, between the Democrats of the 70s and 80s and Zohran Mamdani. There is a difference between alleged corruption and intention. This is pure speculation on my part. But I think what's happening in New York City now is intentional. Zohran Mamdani is the face, but I don't think he's the actual leader of this movement. If you look into the Muslim Brotherhood, if you look into radical Islamists, you will find out that this has been planned for decades. Islamists have been slowly infiltrating American cities since the 80s and early 90s. You think Dearborn, Michigan is a coincidence? You think the spread of Islam in Texas is coincidental? Yesterday, Ron DeSantis, he banned Sharia law in Florida, which is great. That's great. But that will have absolutely no impact on the spread of radical Islam. To their credit, radical Islamists, they are brilliant. These are smart people. They have found a way to use our system against us. They start locally. They infiltrate school boards. They win local elections in small towns. Next thing you know, they have a mayor in the largest city in the country and the financial capital of the world. They are using our tolerance against us. Like I told you guys yesterday, the UAE has stopped sending students to England to study abroad because they're afraid that their children will be radicalized by the Islamists in Great Britain. Just think about that. A Muslim country is refusing to send their students to a Western country because they don't want their students to be radicalized. This is why I keep saying there is a huge difference between a Muslim and an Islamist. The good news is we have plenty of time to stop it here in America, but first, we have to wake up. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.